The regular meeting of the Board of Education, is it on?
Use your teacher voice.
Hello? Hello?
Here, use this.
Hello? Is it working?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Okay.
No, I have
The regular meeting of the Board of Education for February 26, 2019 is called to order. Welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. For tonight's meeting, any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. This meeting is being televised live and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times. This meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV services website. As a reminder, we now have our PPS Ombudsman, Judy Martin, attending all regular board meetings. Specifically, Judy will be here to listen to the public comments and, if appropriate, provide additional support to families who need or want it. Judy can be reached at 503-916-3045 or at ombudsman@pps.net. We also have interpreters with us this evening, and I'd like to ask them to come forward at this time, introduce themselves in the language into which they'll be interpreting, and inform the audience where they'll be located in the auditorium should someone need their assistance. Please use the microphone over there.
Hola y muy buenas tardes, me llamo Daniel y voy a estar interpretando en español. Me pueden ubicar en la parte de atrás, en el fondo del cuarto, si necesitan un servicio de interpretación. Muchas gracias.
Hello， 我姓李，我叫 Stephanie， 我講廣東話，我也講普通話。我們住在後面右邊，如果你們需要語言幫助的話，可以來找我，謝謝。
Добрый вечер, меня зовут Лариса, я говорю по-русски. Если кому-то нужна помощь, я буду сзади комнаты, пожалуйста, обращайтесь.
Okay. Board members, are there any items in our business agenda that you have questions on?
Yes, on Resolution 5833, I'm going to be proposing just an additional sentence added to that the travel is going to be paid out of the board office budget.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. We will start with student and public comment. Ms. Powell, do we have anyone signed up for? Do we have anybody signed up for student comment?
We have 5 students. Our first 2 are Angie Carter and Thomas Gale.
And as people are making their way to the microphones, I'd like to review the guidelines for public comment. The board thanks the community for taking the time to attend this meeting and provide your comments to the board. We value public input as it informs our work, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts, reflections, and concerns. Our responsibility as a board is to actively listen without distraction from our electronic devices or papers. Board members and superintendent will not respond to comments or questions during public comment. If you want to follow up from the board office, please contact Roseanne Powell, the board manager. Guidelines for public input emphasize respect and consideration of others. Complaints about individual employees should be directed to the superintendent's office as a personnel matter. If you have additional items or materials you'd like to provide to the board or superintendent, we ask that you give them to Ms. Powell to distribute. Requests to make public comments should be made ahead of time by contacting the board office or checking with Ms. Powell prior to the start of the board meeting to see if there are spots available. Once the board meeting is started, we can no longer accept new requests for public comment. Okay, presenters. You'll have a total of 3 minutes to share your comments. Please begin by stating your name and spelling your last name for the record. During the first 2 minutes of your testimony, a green light will appear. When you have 1 minute remaining, a yellow light will go on, and when your time is up, the red light will go on and a buzzer will sound. We respectfully ask that you conclude your comments at that time so that other speakers will have their time at the microphone. Okay, do you want to begin?
Hi, my name is Aiden Carter. I am a third grader at Rosa Parks Elementary School. I am safe at school and I like going year-round. I like going year-round because of the short summer break and a better chance of college. The short summer break helps kids not forget their smarts. We do not forget what is taught. We do not have to relearn all over again because of long breaks. The short breaks helps all kids receive quality education. It keeps us wanting to learn. I connect with the material being taught and do better on my tests and score higher. It is great here at school because of my teachers that don't leave and are here for so many years. They stay here for a long time and most of the staff look like me. I have a principal that has been here for over 20 years and they all care about us. They don't rush to teach us and make sure we know to stand up for what is right. They teach us that if we make a mistake to apologize and change our behavior with action. That is what we are asking you to do. Please change us back to a year-round school. Year-round at Rosa Parks helps my mom and other parents. This is because she doesn't have to look for childcare and spends less money. She saves more by keeping me here at school and knows that I will learn all things that I'm supposed to. All the things that also there's no need for summer school. This is because we are year-round and have no use for it because we are already in school during that time. Longer summer breaks are ones used in family that farm, gather, and maintain crops. I need to focus on learning, and being out for so long does not help with that. The agricultural calendar does not help with studying and does not work for kids at my school. Have a great night. Thank you for listening, and will we get our year-round school back?
Hello, my name is Turner Kale. I am a fifth grader at Rosa Parks Elementary School, and I've heard some rumors that you guys wanted to change us back to traditional calendars. I disagree with you. I respectfully disagree with you guys, and I have a few statements to say why. I think year-round school is better for kids because kids are less likely to get summer slide. And even if the students do get summer slide, I most only forget about a third of what they learned. Kids with traditional calendars usually forget half of what they learned. Now, I'm not at all saying those kids are not smart. I'm saying students who get summer slide hold other students back from their full potential on learning. Because teachers have to spend a lot of time teaching old material when they could be teaching something new. But what about summer vacation? Well, in year-round schools, kids in year-round school, such as me, get more opportunities to take a few days to go to the beach or go camping throughout the year. Plus, the teachers get a break to hang out with their families more often. I think kids should get short breaks in the year instead of the grand finale summer break. I think children should always be learning something new for the future instead of reviewing stuff that other kids just forgot. Please base your decision on what the community wants. Please focus on the future of Rosa Parks Elementary and the school board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next, we have Rhiannon Myers and Elizabeth Oliver.
Hi, my name is Rhiannon Myers, and I attend Rosa Parks Elementary in third grade. So, I have a question. Why do you guys think it's a good idea to march into our school and change our calendar? I am here to demand for a year-round calendar back. I think next time you should ask parents, students, and teachers what they want, and not only what you want to do. Change our calendar back to year-round, because if you don't change it back, everyone will forget things they learned in school by the end of summer. I am infuriated because year-round school is mostly all I know. Even though I have gone to 2 other schools, this is the best one for me. I like how year-round schools have short breaks so I can come back and learn. If you change our calendar, you are basically saying you want people to forget what they learned.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I'm in 4th grade at Rosa Parks Elementary, and I'm here to talk about the calendar being changed to standard from year-round. Most students at Rosa Parks don't know a standard calendar because we've been year-round for our entire time here. You made the decision to end our year-round calendar without telling the people it impacts the most, which is wrong because it was a sudden change and we weren't invited to the vote, and that makes me feel like you don't care that it hurt our community. My parents taught me that it is important to tell people before you make decisions about them, and it is equally important to ask what their opinions are before decisions are made. You did not do that, which tells me that you don't really care about what we need. Instead, it feels like you care about yourselves and don't like us being unique. I like Rosa Parks being year-round because I get more breaks, which means I'm not working too hard all the time. I like it because it's as unique as our community and it works for us. Please work with us, students included, by visiting and being willing to hear us and help us come up with a unique plan that works for our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kevin Zaragoza and Kojo Hakam. We have one more student, and then I called you. Kevin Zaragoza, Kojo Hakam, and Matt Bacon-Brennis.
Same thing, our name and,
Yep.
Okay. And spell it?
Yep.
Matt Bacon-Brennis. I am a former teacher at Mount Tabor Middle School and currently a new teacher mentor.
Kojo Hakam, a Chinese teacher at Hosford Middle School and program leader for the China Research Residency.
And I'm Keisuke Musashino from Mount Tabor Middle School. I teach Japanese and social studies at Mount Tabor, and I'm one of the 2 trip leaders for the Japan Research Residency.
Well, first of all, I want to say that's a hard act to follow. Thank you, Rosa Parks presenters. That was terrific. I appreciate it. And I'm thinking we all need to move to year-round school. And we're here to offer support for something different. That is the travel or field trip and foreign travel policy that I believe you're going to be doing the first reading of tonight. So I'm going to let Kojo Sensei, Lao Shu start off, and then we'll go to Musashino Sensei, and then I'll conclude.
Members of the board, parents, students, and fellow colleagues, 晚上好. Good evening. My name is Kojo Hakam, Chinese immersion teacher and program leader for the China Research Residency, or the CRR, at Hosford Middle School. In my 11-plus years at Hosford, I have facilitated international exchanges for over 600 Chinese and Portland Middle School students, which has had a profound and long-lasting impact on not just the participants, but also the families, and equally important, the communities they serve on both sides of the ocean. It is my strong belief, and it is our strong belief, that replicating these experiences will make all students better and our district stronger. We're very pleased with and strongly support the board's most recent proposal to create an 8th grade capstone advisory group to explore ways the district can expand experiential opportunities to all students in middle grades. It is imperative that the three of us are key players in the process. With that in mind, the Mandarin Immersion Program, or the MIP, has already been very proactive and successful in expanding access throughout the district. What started as a pipeline program with 1 class in each grade at Woodstock now includes 2 classes per grade at Woodstock with over 40% native speakers, primarily of first and second generation immigrant families, and 2 more elementary schools, MLK and Harrison Park, 2 schools that serve historically underserved populations. The first cohort of MLK students will begin their middle school MIP experience at Tubman next year. How is this all related to the CRR and the capstone? This year, we are bringing the MIP TOSA on the CRR to China with the primary duty to research and lay groundwork for the Tubman Mandarin program and to ensure the future Tubman students will have a similar in-country experience. To follow up, I have already started discussions with Jingren, the MIP parent organization serving MLK and Tubman, and plan to work with them closely in an advisory role as their school begins developing their capstone and residency program to China. In closing, we believe collaboration is key to success, especially in relation to expanding opportunities and also in determining the needs of each unique community in PPS and making sure it is done right. The Chinese have a saying, 盲人摸象, or the blind man rubbing an elephant. Each blind man is solely focused on his little space, thinking that what he is rubbing is something other than the elephant. Without input from the key stakeholders, particularly of the teachers and the PPS staff instrumental in developing the residency programs and capstone experiences, we all remain the blind man rubbing the elephant. We look forward to hearing how the board plans on including our expertise as we move forward. Thank you.
Minasan konbanwa. Good evening. I'd like to say thank you so much for the opportunity to share briefly with you the same support and enthusiasm for the board, revised foreign travel policy, and creation of an 8th grade capstone advisory group. I'm Keisuke Musashino again, and I've been teaching in the Japanese magnet program at Mount Teba Middle School for the last 20 years, and one of the 2 trip leaders on the Japan research residency. The other trip leader here, Matt Bacon-Brenes, and I have witnessed, like Kojo, the many enduring lessons that this 2-week cross-cultural academic experience has brought both thousands of PPS students and our partner schools and communities in Japan. In particular, we, like Kojo, see tremendous value in sharing our experiences, developed resources, ideas, and more in helping all 8th grade students across the district access a capstone project that propels them into high school. One of the things that we have come to understand about Japan research residency is that it has so much more to teach than language and culture. In fact, it is so much more about developing a sense of agency in our students, a feeling that they can take control and make a difference.
The main research project on both the Japan Research Residency and the China Research Residency revolves around a social issue that each student identifies for herself. We challenge our learners to examine homelessness, bullying, climate change, sexism, racism, gender expectations in schools, or whatever issue that they have identified as important to them. They examine that issue through a cross-cultural lens. When they present this work at our final capstone events in June, yes, there is clearly growth in language and cultural understanding, but most significantly, parents and students report to us that they have gained a much clearer sense that they can do this, that they can take ownership and responsibility in this world. The academic year ends with a bang. As with the Mandarin Immersion program, we have already been a part of sharing and are very much interested in more. For starters, the Chinese research residency was modeled after the Japan research residency. Is that mine? To help them get started, we provided copies of the materials the teachers at Mount Tabor had developed over many years, along with consultation. Now, in fact, we continue to consult to this very day, 12 years later. That collaboration has sparked numerous additions and improvements over the years to both the CPR and the CRR, sorry. Did I say CPR? Okay. Perhaps of even greater significance, though, has been the collaboration developed among the 3 8th grade social studies programs co-located at Mount Tabor Middle School. Both the neighborhood and the Spanish immersion 8th grade social studies programs made the move many years ago to adopt this idea of ending the academic year with a similar student-centered research project and presentation. As with the Mandarin program, we have shared strategies and solved problems collectively in both professional learning community and sometimes simply at the copy machine. Today, all 8th graders at Mount Tabor conduct in-depth research on a topic of their choosing, including surveys and expert interviews, compile and analyze their data, and present it to both parents and their peers. Yes, all the 8th graders at Mount Tabor do go to Oaks Park for a bit of celebration to conclude their middle school experience, but they also are challenged to finish, to sprint to the end, to the ticker tape at the end of the track, in a relevant and rigorous synthesis of information, data, ideas, and experiences. This has come to be in part through PPS supporting programs like the JRR and CRR, and the exchange of practice, perhaps most importantly, among colleagues. We look forward to your continued support for both these programs and others, and your promotion of collaboration through the 8th grade Capstone Advisory Group. We believe these ideas can fit well with Superintendent Guerrero's request that all students, no matter what school they attend, have consistent access to rich and rigorous learning experiences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Tony Jones and Barb Macon.
Good evening, Superintendent Guerrero, PPS board members. My name is Tony Jones. I'm the president of Coalition of Black Men. I'm here to speak about the proposed resolution to authorize location of multiple pathways to graduation in PISA at the Benson Polytechnic School. I am in support of the resolution and thankful that PPS leadership and board is taking steps in the right direction. Making a commitment to have the multiple pathways to graduation programs at Benson with facilities to accommodate the space and education needs of the most vulnerable students, mostly youth of color, is critical to address the educational disparities faced by these youth. As several of you have attended the listening sessions at Benson, you can attest to the dedication of the PPS staff to these youth, and this helps retain and elevate these students' participation and performance. The Coalition of Black Men, with other community partners, will continue to work with you, observe whether the commitments in the resolution will be met, and make recommendations when we see the commitment in the resolution may be in jeopardy. Specifically, as the resolution states, building a dedicated building on the Benson campus for the multiple pathways of graduation programs, Alliance, Reconnection, DART, through the next bond proposal. And then also relocate these programs to Kenton. We know this will take a lot of work, since I believe De La Salle's at Kenton now, and we know that there's going to be work needed at the school. But I believe this is a decent solution, since it has proximity to public transportation. We wish they could remain in Benson, but we know that this is a good alternative in the interim. We thank the students and the staff for the unwavering advocacy and work to help address our community educational disparities in a positive way. And we thank you. We look forward to continue moving forward with this strategy to address kids of color and our equity needs in the community. Thank you.
Next, we have Carolyn Hickman and Melissa Duclos.
Hi, my name is Melissa Duclos, D-U-C-L-O-S. My children are in kindergarten and second grade at Rosa Parks. I'm grateful the board opened 3 spaces to hear from our community, and I hope this is the beginning of a longer conversation. I send my kids to Rosa Parks because of the year-round calendar. I know the research on summer slide and the instructional time lost reteaching old content each fall. I know from experience that 12-week summer breaks are a burden for working families. And I saw in Rosa Parks a school that was willing to try something new. After 3 years, I can tell you that the calendar works for Rosa Parks students. I'm not sure you care about what works for our students, though. In the letter explaining the school board's decision, you cited difficulties managing multiple calendars within the Roosevelt cluster and coordinating district-wide services, programs, and boundary discussions. You told us why this calendar was hard for you. Your decision had nothing to do with the day-to-day experiences of Rosa Parks students, teachers, or parents. This is a real-time illustration of the recent audit findings that PPS systematically fails to serve children of color. At the town hall meeting on this audit, Ms. Moore claimed that the new board and administration were working to improve. But your failure to involve Rosa Parks families or staff in your decision show otherwise. There's no evidence of change here. You simply cannot serve communities you refuse to talk to. I'm asking the school board for 3 things. First, reinstate Rosa Parks' school calendar with a commitment to work with parents to help it succeed. There are issues with the calendar. We have no after-school programs between July and September, and no full-day camps during our breaks, for example. These are issues, though, that the district can help parents solve. Second, invite Rosa Parks parents and staff to work with you on a clear set of metrics to judge the calendar's success. We can talk about test scores if we know what tests we're using and what the benchmark for success is. We can also talk about social emotional development, attendance, teacher retention, access to breakfast and lunch, and parent satisfaction measured through comprehensive surveys. Let us help you set student-centered goals for this pilot and then work with us to meet those goals. Third, produce a public report evaluating the district's communication with parents that addresses what happened with Pioneer, Kairos, and now Rosa Parks. Invite members of these communities as well as representatives from culturally specific organizations to develop a plan for family engagement that demonstrates your commitment to changing the status quo for students of color in Portland. Thank you.
My name is Carolyn Hickman, and I am a Rosa Parks parent. Currently, I have a daughter in kindergarten at Rosa Parks, and my plan is to send my other 2 kids to Rosa Parks. I've had 2 kids that graduated from Rosa Parks. I mention this because it speaks to my love and commitment to the Rosa Parks model. At Rosa Parks, my kids have been safe, loved, cared for, and looked after. With a child at George Middle School and a teenager at Roosevelt, I completely understand the value of what Rosa Parks offer. When my children show up to school, they are not only see a principal who looks like them, but also teachers and staff that support them. When my children visit their friends in other classrooms or interact with teachers in the halls, they see a wide range of diversity, culture, religious beliefs, and sexual orientation. What frustrates me the most is the fact that we have the data that you all seem to love so much, which shows that Portland Public Schools continues to fail students and families of color. The latest audit provided by Oregon Secretary of State reflects your inability to lead for us. You fail to place experienced principals in schools that need them because your values are out of order. You have teacher turnover because the leaders that you've placed in buildings do not build relationships with their teachers. Maybe they can't lead because you can't teach them how. I look at the cabinet of leaders you've selected to inform you in this work, and I'm still unconvinced that you know how to lead, because there is no one who looks like me sitting next to you in those meetings. Well, I'm here tonight so that you see me, my children, in a year-round calendar that means so much to them. I'm here to applaud Rosa Parks, their principal, teachers, and staff for a job well done, a job no one else can seem to do right when it comes to Black and brown children. I'm here to let you know that if the only way you can measure student success is to look at tests that we all know are fundamentally biased, then we got bigger issues on our hands. I fully support Rosa Parks in the year-round calendar, not because the data tells me it's successful, because me and my family are the data, and I know.
And lastly, we have Byung Yu and Tatiana Turdal.
My name is Byung Yu. It's spelled B-E-Y-O-U-N-G-Y-U, and I'm an ESL teacher at Rosa Parks Elementary. I'd like to speak on the injustices that have impacted the Rosa Parks community. I'd like to speak on the gentrification that exists when I look outside our classroom windows and see the $600,000 homes going up, displacing our families out to Gresham to search for more affordable living environments. I'd like to speak on an entire school board voting 7-0 in May of 2018 against year-round school, and our community finding out about it 2 weeks ago. I'd like to speak on having a secret board vote and putting it at the end of a 5-hour meeting without notifying a single parent, teacher, student, or the principal. I'd like to speak on Rosa Parks students being measured by 3 different standardized tests in a 5-year period. I'd like to speak on behalf of our 19 languages and 25 ESL students who came to Rosa Parks with no prior schooling and are forced to take multiple standardized tests in a language they do not understand. I'd like to speak on being measured by biased test scores instead of choosing to measure the socioeconomic benefit of year-round school that spreads out breaks and keeps our at-risk youth off the streets and inside a classroom. that provides the 95% of students qualifying for free lunch a place to be fed and nurtured on a more consistent schedule. I'd like to speak on our school losing 7 FTE this year, including its assistant principal and on-site substitute. I'd like to speak on having the longest tenured principal in Portland Public Schools. And what it would be like to lose her leadership and switch to a traditional calendar in the same year. I'd like to speak on having an 88% teacher retention rate and a staff of color that mirrors the population we teach. I'd like to speak on an ODE report that stated how PPS is failing students of color and recommended the very things that Rosa Parks is already doing. But since I only have 3 minutes, I will say this. When a child makes a mistake, I tell our students that sorry is not enough. I tell our students to be accountable and make things right. School board members, during a recent town hall meeting that addressed how PPS is failing students of color, PPS apologized to our Black and brown communities for decades of failure to support children of color. Sorry is not enough. Make us whole by rescinding the vote. Make us whole by providing Rosa Parks 5 additional years to become a permanent year-round school and show you this is the way to equitably serve our students of color. Make us whole by fulfilling what was promised to us 5 years ago and surveying our cluster schools to see if year-round school can be expanded. Make us whole by going beyond standardized tests and finding a socioeconomic test that measures the stability year-round school provides. And finally, make us whole by providing our materials on time so we are ready for instruction on day 1.
Good evening. Добрий вечір. My name is Tatiana Tordal. Tatiana Tordal, T-E-R-D-A-L. I'm a parent of 2 kids at Access Academy, and I'm here to remind you that Access needs one central location. I have kids who come home and say, I hate the split. I hate the split. I don't like the split either, so I told them I'll go and talk to the people who made the decision to split Access into 2 locations. We had a promise that the only thing that will change is the address. And this is very far from reality, and I have many more gray hairs this year because it's been so many challenges and disruptions this year. So we have locations that are very, very far from most of PPS. So we have some students whose families just could not handle the commute. So we had students who dropped out of PPS altogether. So we have homeschooled kids as the result of the split. 2 locations means that we can't have a lot of joint classes like we used to have with elementary and middle schools. We need now more 2 PE teachers, 2 learning centers, and again, this is the result of the split. The split was very badly planned and executed, so when we came back from the summer break, there were no teachers for many of the classes, so my kid did not have a permanent math teachers for 2 months. We had the same problem with PE and Learning Center. Learning Center specifically has been a huge problem. We have 20% of kids in elementary grades who have IEPs. It's a lot of autistic kids, ADHD, anxiety. They need routine and structure, but they've had 4 Learning Center teachers just this year. Teacher number 3 was there only 2 weeks, and I was trying to set up a meeting with her to go over AP, set up services, and she was gone. So what happened is the IEPs were not implemented, which is illegal. But it also means that the kids were not supported. There was a lot of disruptions in the learning process, classes, and teachers were not supported. So I want to remind you, we need one central location. My kid hates the split, but he really likes Access, because it's okay to be different at Access. It is okay to be autistic at Access. There are a lot of kids who are no longer bullied and ostracized because they have a circle of friends, they feel supported, that finally feel fit academically and socially, and this is really worth it for us. So please, we really do need to have one central location where all these kids can be supported and can learn. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your testimony. I just want to say that to the Rosa Parks families, staff will be coming out to talk with you and to work with you on planning for what lies ahead. And I think it's what we're interested in doing is working with you and helping to make sure that that Rosa Parks meets the needs of the students and the families as much as possible. So there'll be more information coming. I think you all got a letter today, and there will be more information coming about opportunities to share more input and work with staff on a solution going forward. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is not, it's not an agenda item tonight. We're not going to take a vote. But staff will be coming out to work with the school community. Okay. I want to thank everybody for your comments. If you have any additional information that you'd like to share with the board, please contact Board Manager Roseanne Powell. Once again, we thank you all for coming tonight and sharing your views. Okay, next item on the agenda is a resolution in support of education funding to the level recommended by the Quality Education Model. I'd like to ask Director Anthony to give some context to this resolution and to read the text of the resolution. Okay, since we're having some movement, I think we'll recess for about 3 minutes. Convene the regular meeting. The next item on the agenda is a resolution in support of education funding to the level recommended by the Quality Education Model. I'm going to ask Director Anthony to read the resolution and provide some context.
Good evening. The context for this is pretty simple and it's pretty straightforward. For 29 years now, Oregon has grossly underfunded its public schools, and we are sick of it. Enough is enough. And at this moment, we have a brief window with the legislature where we think we may be able to get in enough revenue reform to be able to get the funding that public education so badly needs. So, a resolution in support of education funding to the level recommended by the Quality Education Model. Since the passage of Measure 5 in 1990, Oregon has consistently disinvested in public education and failed to adopt a means of sustainably paying for all essential public services. And funding a strong system of public education is the best investment Oregonians can make to strengthen our economy, create thriving communities, and improve the quality of life for every Oregonian. And Oregon students need a well-rounded curriculum that includes art, music, PE, career and technical training, and co-curricular activities, as well as supports to meet their individualized needs, and efforts to close the academic achievement gap and supports for students who have been historically underserved must be expanded. And Oregon's public schools have experienced 30 years of unstable and inadequate funding that has resulted in dire consequences, including teacher and staff layoffs, relentless program cuts, some of the largest class sizes, and one of the shortest school years in the country. And the Quality Education Model, adopted in 1999, has consistently defined what a high-quality educational system should look like for Oregon students, but the legislature has never provided the funding to meet it. And the work of the Joint Committee on Student Success represents an opportunity to define what our schools can be and find the means of sustainably paying for them. And students in our public schools face challenging learning conditions due to lack of resources and can no longer wait for the public education they deserve. Resolved, Portland School District Board of Directors supports and encourages efforts in the legislature to increase revenues sufficient to provide stable funding to the level of the QEM in order to assure educational opportunities for every student in every district in our state. The Portland Public Schools Board of Education pledges to join and support the efforts of the Oregonians for Student Success campaign to ensure that Oregon's lawmakers prioritize investments to improve the educational outcomes for Oregon's greatest natural resource, our children. Thank you.
The board will now consider resolution number 5826. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Director Anthony moves. Director Esparza Brown seconds the adoption of resolution number 5826. Ms. Powell, is there any public comment? No. Is there any board discussion on the resolution? Okay.
It's about time.
I think it's well past time. Okay. We will now vote on resolution number 5826. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Any abstentions? Resolution number 5826 is approved by a vote of 7-1. And I should probably take this opportunity to mention that the student representative, Nick Paisler, is out sick this evening.
And also, I just wanted to add that this support of and advocacy at the legislature in support of funding at the QEM level is part of a statewide coalition of school districts and the Oregon School Boards Association leading the charge there. So school districts across all of Oregon are passing similar resolutions and really showing up strong in Salem this year, saying we need to do better for kids.
Along with other partners, including Oregon Education Association, and a number of other organizations that are all trying to work together to convince the legislature to actually put their money where their mouth is and do right by kids. Okay. The next item is the superintendent's report. Superintendent Guerrero, would you like to provide your report?
Yes, thank you, Director Moore. Just waiting. We're in a new tradition of using visuals. Here we go. Good evening, directors, students, parents, and community staff. Thank you for being here tonight. Before I begin, though, my report, I want to acknowledge our speakers and community members who are present here this evening. We appreciate your passion and your commitment to our students. I am committed, I know that my team is committed to ensure our students excel academically and socially. We look forward to working in a more collaborative fashion to accomplish this shared goal. We are in agreement about the need for expanded learning time, supports, and opportunities. As was evident last week, students, educators, and staff joined thousands of others in Salem to make sure that education and educational funding is a top priority to lawmakers. This is a picture of a sea of red representing public education needing to be a priority on the steps of the state capitol on President's Day. Speaking of the budget, today we met with our school principals, all of them, and our central office teams to discuss the 2019-20 budget. We shared with them that we are presently experiencing a $17 million budget gap and how we are working actively to resolve it. Costs are up, revenues are down, and this gap is due to several factors, including lower than predicted enrollment, declining poverty rates in the district, and lower numbers of English language learner students. PPS is already taking steps to minimize impacts on schools. This includes further belt tightening and cuts at the central office. Though there are cuts, you will see incremental investments in direct supports to schools, in curriculum, student supports, and special education. As our budget development process continues, we will be sharing more details in the coming weeks as part of our budget development process. And so we can and we will manage our budget, our buildings, and all of our resources to provide the maximum benefit for our students. But we do need help from Salem. Public education must be a clear priority in our state to ensure adequate funding of our schools. I, along with other superintendents and educational leaders from around the state, continue to participate in ongoing meetings and conversations, including again today with Governor Brown to discuss public school funding. We stand firm in our belief that the state must do more for its schools and reverse the decades of divestment that has put Oregon near the bottom of the nation in terms of funding. The immediate budget considerations will not stand in the way of the work we are continuing to improve the educational experience for our students in our schools. As we heard earlier this month, we've begun work on district-wide assessment of all of our facilities and have laid the early groundwork to begin our enrollment and program balancing. Already we're having to manage some very real space constraints at some of our schools, including here at Bridger, for example. We are pleased that a short-term plan is emerging that proposes to send Bridger's 3 kindergarten classes to the nearby Holiday Annex in time for next school year. This action results from a concerted outreach effort in which staff and community collaborated on possible options to relieve crowding. Holiday Annex, which is nearby, offers many amenities for our younger learners and was by far the more popular option among staff and families. I look forward to visiting the site tomorrow with representatives of the Bridger community as we finalize feasibility of this plan for co-locating Bridger kindergartners. Our ultimate goal, of course, is that we have the right balance of enrollment and programming at every one of our schools. This will be part of our longer-term look at the way we can make the best use of the buildings we have and in the work aimed at ensuring a balance of enrollment at every one of them. I had the honor of attending and speaking at the annual International Youth Leadership Conference at Portland State University last week. This is an annual and inspiring gathering of students, many of them representing Portland Public Schools. dedicated to understanding and supporting the unique experiences of our immigrant youth and emergent bilingual students. The conference is built around a few themes: student leadership, global citizenship, and celebrating linguistic and cultural diversity. As I said in my opening remarks there, we as a district aspire to create opportunities to expand students' worldviews far beyond our local boundaries. The unique perspectives of our immigrant family students matters greatly to us. We celebrate our students' cultural and linguistic diversity. Congratulations to all the students and the organizers for a very successful event and for preparing a great many workshops that both students and educators like myself who had the opportunity to participate in these important conversations. As we head into the fourth week of our Successful Schools Survey, we are seeing some encouraging results already. Nearly 90% of students in grades 5, 7, and 10 have taken the student survey. This is more than triple the rate of the previous year. Thank you to our area assistant superintendents and our principals for helping achieve this level of participation. More than 11,000 families have participated in the family survey. That's more than double the last survey. With 2 weeks still to go, we are hoping for a higher participation rate, but already we have a good sample set. So please, we encourage everyone to go to the survey link or go to our website for further information. We're looking forward to sharing the results next month when the survey window closes here with the board. A couple quick notes of congratulations to celebrate our students across the district. First, as a former grappler myself, I want to congratulate Jonte Hardaway, who last weekend won the state wrestling championship in the 120-pound division. The last time, that's deserving of an applause. Jonte Hardaway, if you're listening. The last time we had a state wrestling champion was Jefferson's Josiah Williams, who won in 2016 in the 145-pound bracket. Congratulations to Jonte. Let's hear it for the Lent and Winter Haven chess teams, the Lent School Leopards. They dominated the annual regional tournament for elementary and middle school players. The elementary team won by a landslide. And a special shout out to Xochitl, who went a perfect 5-0 and won first place. The middle school team barely missed first place, missing by half a point to Winter Haven, which took first at the regional tournament. And today, on a related note, the Portland Trail Blazers Foundation announced a generous gift to Lentz Chess Club to support their continued success both regionally and statewide. So thank you to the Blazers for supporting our students and our schools. Great job, Winter Haven and Lent chess competitors. And finally, I'm also excited to share that this coming Thursday, we will welcome students from across our school communities who are part of Black student unions, Latino student organizations, Native student circles, and other culturally specific student organizations for an interactive evening centered on student voice, their student voice. As we continue to build our capacity to engage in meaningful community with our students, this event is one in a series of events that we will have to engage all of our students, but especially students from diverse communities. Directors, that concludes my report. Checkmate.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Trillium Charter School. The board has a resolution before us to terminate the Trillium Public Charter School. I'd like to ask Director Constam, Chair of the board's Charter Committee, to provide the report.
Thank you, Director Moore. So the process for reviewing, renewal, and potentially terminating charter schools is very prescribed by the state. This is the responsibility that the Charter Committee and ultimately the full board has in terms of oversight of our charter schools. So we had 4 or 5 schools this year in a renewal process that we went through, reviewing student achievement data, financial data, and all of that, and then a subsequent hearing on one renewal. And then with the review of Trillium, we had a special condition, which was that the school, after 2 years of failing performance data based on the metrics that the state provide, the school was put into a plan of improvement, which was carefully partnering with our charter office in terms of working through the goals of the plan of improvement. And within the 1-year period for that plan, the student achievement goals were not met, and there's another provision in the state statute regarding oversight and potential revocation of charter status, which pertains to financial stability, and we also discussed some concerns around the financial stability of the organization, particularly given a really precipitous decline in enrollment in the last 2 years. And so following those discussions, it was the recommendation of the charter subcommittee to the full board that it's incumbent upon us to revoke their charter status at this time. So we have our director of our charter programs, Tara O'Neill, is coming up with Karina Wolf, who is our director of multiple pathways, which oversees the charter school office, who can provide the basis of the staff recommendation that was provided to the board, as well as a little bit of context around how the district has been working with Trillium through this whole plan of improvement process. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education and Superintendent Guerrero. At this time, we would like to share historical and current information regarding Trillium Charter School that has led to the recommendation to terminate the charter with Trillium Charter School. Trillium Charter School opened in year 2002-2003 as a K-12 public charter school sponsored by PPS. Trillium's charter with PPS has been renewed 3 times, in 2007, 2012, and in accordance with the criteria established in ORS 338.065. At its last renewal, Trillium was instructed by the PPS Board of Education to provide a written plan to improve the performance of its students in math at all grade bands, and that agreement was formalized in the renewal contract. In 2017, after 2 consecutive years of failure to meet academic expectations in math in grades 3 through 8, Trillium was required by contract to submit an action plan of improvement for students in math grades 3 through 8 for the 2017-18 school year. Per contract, failure to make progress towards improvement within 1 year of implementing the plan of improvement may result in termination. The SBAC results and Oregon report card assessment of Trillium's performance in 2017-18 reflected a 3rd consecutive year of poor performance in grades 3 through 8 math. In addition, the 2017-18 Smarter Balanced assessment results indicated an additional consecutive year of poor performance in English language arts for all students in grades 3 through 8, necessitating the addition of grades 3 through 8 in the English language arts to the action plan of improvement for 18-19. The financial model of the charter schools is based on student enrollment reimbursement. Each school provides a projected budget for each school year in which monthly reconciliation is completed with the actual number of students attending. Trillium has an enrollment capacity of 365 students and historically enrolls between 340 and 350 students per year. Trillium's 2018-19 budget was based on an assumption of enrollment of 350 students at a time when they had 289 students. They communicated hopes they would boost enrollment over the summer of 2018. As of today, Trillium has 201 students, of which 9 are kindergartners, indicating there are no kindergarten students on the wait list this year. Trillium's total enrollment reflects a decline of over 40% since school year 2016-17, with an associated decline in revenue, which was not adequately accounted for in Trillium's 18-19 budget. Trillium has experienced staffing changes in its finance office, and at this time, the district does not have accurate financial records to assess cash balance or monthly cash flow through the end of this current fiscal year. While we continue to request financial reports, we have not received them. This causes us grave concern. The results of Trillium's plan of improvement and current financial stability concerns were reported at the February 8th Board Charter Schools Committee meeting. At that meeting, a recommendation was made to terminate the charter with Trillium Charter School effective June 30th, 2019, based on failure to meet student performance requirements and failure to maintain financial stability. While charter schools must follow federal law and those state laws listed in ORS 338.115, many statutes and rules apply to other public schools and districts do not apply to charter schools. While charter schools have significant autonomy from district policies, this autonomy comes with greater accountability for meeting the standards and outcomes set in law and by contract. If a charter school fails to meet state standards and outcomes, it can ultimately lose its charter with the sponsor through the termination process described in ORS 338.105 and OAR 581-026-0500. Per ORS 338.105-2A, a notice of intent to terminate charter was delivered to Trillium Charter School on February 13th, 2019, stating the grounds for termination as ORS 338.1051B, failure to meet student performance requirements, and E, failure to maintain financial stability. A public hearing was held on February 20th, 2019, per OAR 581-026-0500, Section 4. The proposed effective date of termination is June 30th, 2019, meeting statutory requirement that notice be given at least 60 days prior to the proposed effective date of the termination. With regard to what's missing, there's been questions with regard to what's missing financially or inaccurate. The financial indicators on the framework are mostly taken from the information on the municipal audit, which is information from the previous school year, 17-18. Our current concerns financially are related to the stability in the 2018-19 year, when enrollment has fallen off by an additional 30% from the previous year, without a clear outline of how the school has adjusted budget and expenses to accommodate for that loss of revenue. While we collect quarterly financial reports from each school, we have asked Trillium additionally for monthly cash flow, cash balance, and cash flow projections through the end of this fiscal year, which they have been unable to produce for us since a changeover in their financial office in November. We did receive some additional information on February 4th, 2019, that was partially updated with annotations for known inaccuracies from the Trillium staff. On June 30th, 2018, the audit showed an unrestricted fund balance of $400,201. On December 31st, 2018, Trillium provided PPS with an unreconciled balance sheet, and it showed a $209,000 cash balance. Their December 2018 projection showed a projected loss of $263,757.73. The enrollment is down 80 students from 289 to 209 for the 2018-19. The enrollment was down 51 students from 340 to 289 for 2017-18. The school has shared goals of fundraising, though their fundraising records show a history of no more than $30,000 fundraised annually. And then just to respond to kind of on the academic side, Tara's going to speak to that.
Good evening. Trillium Charter School has had poor or inconsistent performance for the last 3 years. The school has been operating under a plan of improvement for specific academic achievement concerns since January of 2018, the planned outcomes of which were not met. Smarter Balanced Achievement academic results for 2017-18 reflect very poor math achievement for grades 3 through 8 for the third year in a row. In addition, there have been growing organizational and financial concerns in the past year. In the past 2 years, there's been significant turnover within the Trillium staff, including the executive director, the business office, the heads of school, and teachers, as well as turnover of nearly all the Trillium board members. Finally, the school's enrollment has fallen off significantly, as Karina alluded to. The reduction in enrollment significantly impacts the school's financial viability,
effectively reducing the school's revenue by about 45% within the last 2 years. And if you have any questions, we can take those now.
I guess we'll just open it up for conversation, recognizing that this is a very difficult position for us to be in because this involves students' experience every day and families' experience. And I will be the first to say that I know that we have many students at Trillium who really feel strongly that they are being well served by a very caring, validating community and some really incredibly professional, dedicated, loving educators. And I would say from spending time with the students and spending time in the building, that's all very evident. But based on the information that we have been presented and that was just recounted here, our fiduciary responsibility that's put upon this board from the state is to hold our charter schools accountable to these very clear metrics through a very clear process, and that is the moment that we find ourselves in right now.
Well, in addition to the fiduciary responsibilities, certainly it's about the academic progress of all students. And knowing that Trillium has often many historically underserved, marginalized students, if we can't ever lower the bar for any student. And that's really the issue here is, another issue is that we haven't been able to see that gap close. And that isn't going to happen overnight, but I guess we haven't seen progress in closing that gap over time, and that's a huge red flag moving forward. We have to ensure that our students have the opportunity, every one of them, to have a high-quality educational program that is going to help them meet those state standards towards graduation. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that happen. And that gap close at Trillium.
I would say also that the schedule for this process is also laid out in state statute, as Ms. Wolf just referred to a bit. But part of what is coming to bear on this schedule right now is that if the board does concur with the staff report to revoke this charter, the district, and speaking for myself as a member of the board, want to make sure that it is done in time that we can maximize all the opportunities for our students and families in terms of figuring out the right placement for all of these students. And we can, depending on how we vote this evening, there will be many further conversations about how to best serve each of these students and families moving forward. But this is the season that we're in right now, where lotteries are taking place for focus option programs, and it's planning for enrollment in all of our area schools. So I just wanted to lay that out there with regard to the timing of things.
One of the things I have complained about with our relationship with charter schools, with our relationship with many different mandates from the state, and actually about many different organizations all over, is that we end up stuck with the responsibility without being given the authority. But I do want to ask, what help have we been able to give to Trillium during this last year? I know that often it's quite constrained what we are able to do, but what have we been able to deliver?
So throughout this year, we have been able to work with the Trillium executive director and head of school to bring about MAPS testing. The process has begun as of October, and had a series of meetings with PPS testing and with the MAPS vendor, and that was an ongoing process of about a couple of meetings and a back and forth from PPS testing in terms of updating with information, and that process is not yet completed. So offering the path to get maps from PPS, because PPS already has the licenses. Other charter schools are actually accessing MAPS testing through their own individual contracts with MAPS. And other other ways of supporting in this past year, the original financial person at Trillium had some questions around how to forecast state school funding, et cetera, and providing templates and worksheets on how to forecast that so that the budget could be made more realistic based on what the student enrollment is. Additionally, for all the charter schools, we hold monthly charter school directors meetings where the charter school directors help form what is on that agenda, and they can support each other in their help their colleagues with whatever is happening at the time in terms of providing support for each other. Quite often, charter school directors are the best help for other charter school directors coming from the same place. So, anything to add?
Yeah, I would also say that all of our charter schools have access to our professional learning. So it was previously Learning Campus, now it's Pepper. So we try to make professional learning opportunities available to their heads of schools as well as their staffs. And I would also add that as the current executive director came on board, we did reach out to a retired administrator who was a very successful charter school administrator and ask to try to build a relationship, a mentorship relationship, or just to reach out for a new executive director to be able to give some guidance from that seat. Very appropriately, the Trillium School and Board have done that and did a nice job with that as well. And we would just point out that the employees are employees of the Trillium Charter School Board and that organization. And so there's also opportunities for that organization's board to provide professional development and support for their employees.
So they were provided opportunities for professional development through us. Do you know, have they partaken in that, have been part of the various opportunities for PD and around instruction?
I don't know that there's been any participation in PD around instruction. The pedagogical model at Trillium would be very different from what PPS would be doing for professional development. Additionally, other than what is provided at the monthly charter directors meetings, I don't know what else has been participated in.
It has been offered.
Okay.
Just to clarify on, is it MAP or MAPS?
MAP.
MAP, with an S?
Measures of academic progress.
I know.
Go say it.
Measures of academic
Whichever,
progress. MAP.
just to clarify, Trillium requested access to the MAP assessment. At first, our understanding was that couldn't happen because their computers were not secure.
So originally, Trillium approached PPS testing to find out whether or not that was a possibility. The PPS testing coordinator talked with the charter schools office to say, is this something we should do for charter schools? And we determined, why not? We have the licenses, let's do it. So yeah, absolutely. And moving forward with that, the testing coordinator had to do some logistical work with the NWEA vendor, and set up a meeting where the executive director and the charter schools office, the NWEA vendor, and the testing coordinator were all discussing what was needed and what the possibilities would be. At the end of that meeting, I believe there was a communication by email about whether or not Trillium's technology would work, and was later responded to by the executive director saying yes, it would work. They were not. They had Windows. It was going to work okay. So from that point forward, our testing coordinator moved forward to find out what needed to happen to make this continue. And I think the last update that we had from her was on February 5th. So this was a process that occurred between about the end of October to February 5th, that entire back and forth. Current status right now is that, our PPS testing department just recently, I believe yesterday, got updated about all of that because that testing coordinator actually left employment with PPS. So we're picking that up and moving forward with it.
But to answer your question very directly, there were concerns following the meeting or questions that arose which arise with any of our schools just around the security of student data. And so that was one of the next steps. Which happened as the executive director went back to Trillium to understand and confirm that the PPS requirements and the NWA requirements for protection of student data would be able to be met.
Okay, and we learned that security existed when?
I'm gonna say probably January, beginning or mid-January. It's probably on dates. I didn't bring my dates with me.
I have the dates.
So, and just to clarify one more thing on the financial status. We know their cash balance was roughly $400,000 at the end of the last school year. Is that?
Yeah. Can I answer your previous question?
Oh,
so on
sorry.
January 14th, I apologize, I did have it right here. On January 14th is the meeting that Ms. O'Neill's referencing with NWEA, and on January 30th was when we received feedback from Trillium Charter Schools Executive Director that after assessing the tech, that Trillium had switched to Windows in the last year and they would be able to pursue. So it was the end of January when the process happened in December and January.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So at the end of last school year, their cash balance was roughly $400,000. The best we know, it was down to about $200,000 at the end of December.
So at the end of December, sorry, lots of papers. December 31st, 2018, Trillium provided PPS an unreconciled balance sheet that showed a $209,000 cash balance. Their December 2018 projection showed a projected loss of negative $263,757.
So is that the loss between the end of last school year and December 31st?
So there's a difference between June 30th of 2018, they had an unrestricted fund balance of $409,000. In December, they had an unreconciled balance that said they had a $209,000 cash balance, but their December 2018 projection showed a projected loss of $263,000.
And I'm sorry, for what time period is that projected loss? Is that going forward through June? Is that?
So
I
reviewed the financial records this evening, and there is a cash flow projection sheet that was submitted at the end of the second quarter in December that showed actuals from July through December that then they projected from January through June of 2019. My concern is the accuracy of the numbers when I see the actuals for July through December, the salary expenses are higher than what they projected for January through June for the second half of the year. And I asked if they had reduced positions to lower the salary, and it was reported they had not.
We sent that, requested an email, and we were given an email back that said they hadn't. We were given an email back that said they hadn't, although we know that they have combined some classrooms, so we just can't put the two things together in line with what the financial projections were saying.
So with the cash flow through June 30th of 19, it does show that 200, and I need the sheet in front of me.
Quick Q&A.
So that was 238. Sorry.
I think just a point of
263,000.
clarification, too. So part of the unreconciled refers to the fact that we did not get a revised budget that reflects the actual change in enrollment. The budget that we had reflects the prior enrollment projections, which are 60-plus students more, and the attendant revenue, right?
When I review the financial statements, it's hard to get a clear understanding. They have noted on the records submitted to us that specific numbers in the balance sheet are not accurate. I believe the changeover in financial, the financial staff there, the new person has reported that they haven't been able to reconcile yet from what the other person had left. And so that is of concern that we don't have reconciled financial reports. And also I would want to see the leadership of the school to be supporting the financial person to reconcile this so we could get a clearer understanding of the current financial status of the school. From the records we have, we cannot tell.
So,
Can I just get can you explain what a reconciled budget means? I mean, what exactly does it mean?
So when you build a budget based on a certain enrollment figure, and then they come in at a lower enrollment figure, then you would need to re-project the revenue at a lower level, and then you would need to also reduce the expenditures in order to have a balanced budget.
So it's possible in the last half of the school year for a loss along the same lines as was happening over the previous 6 months? Unless
So
something.
the projection is through June 30th at 263,000 into the negative. So they're projecting overall for the year of 18-19 a negative $263,000 loss. So a
But
$263.
we don't even know how that relates to the enrollment decline. I mean, we don't even know if
We
that's an
don't-
accurate representation
that's
of
correct.
what the revenue is that is coming in from the state on a per-student basis.
That is correct. We would need more information from the school to be able to reconcile.
Okay, so, and that's going from 400 subtracting 263 is that's the current
That's the
projection
simple
for the end
math,
of the
but
year.
that's not accounting for any balance sheet
yeah,
item
exactly,
reconciliation.
yeah.
Education expert, I'm going to defer to the educators on the academics at the school, but just to follow on the financial side. So the audit that we have actually shows, it looked through a quick review, that a fairly clean audit from last year. And then based on the financials that we have, it's probably a reasonable expectation that because of the enrollment that there will be a loss or sort of a financial challenge on their balance sheet.
Yes.
And they've submitted quarterly reports, but not the monthly cash cash flow? Is that?
I would say the December 31st quarterly report has not been submitted. What has been submitted is not, it's got not accurate, not verified written all over it from the school. So that's not, I wouldn't accept that as a financial report because it is not reconciled.
So on their balance sheet, they, just looking at sort of what a reasonable person could speculate, because we
Sure.
don't actually have, I think we can make some reasonable speculations, but not with certainty. They also have a building or a capital asset. And what is on the liability side of the sheet?
There's long-term debt of
Is that something they could leverage on an operational basis? You just give your professional opinion.
Yeah, the fixed assets are, for the building and land, et cetera, is $2.7 million. So that's to the good. And then they also have long-term debt of $2.8 million.
2.8 million?
2.8 million.
Right, so they have
So there's more debt than the asset is valued on the balance sheet.
So they're really close to being insolvent.
So if the school and land were sold, I don't have an appraisal there to know what that value, that true value is. This is their current fixed asset, which is probably the purchase price for building the school, not necessarily the current market value.
Doesn't the ownership go back to the state?
I don't know the answer to that.
In a manner of speaking.
So Director Rosen and I were at Trillium yesterday, and we asked a number of financial questions, and the responses we got about the district's request for financial statements was that there had been this transition, and they hadn't had a chance to prepare the statements. I think part of our conversation, we were like, well, tomorrow night we're having a hearing, so I think from my standpoint, it's that we have to go with the information that we have now. I mean, obviously, there's potentially a process by which Trillium can appeal, and I guess if they could get their records together, that would be one thing. But I think from what we have tonight and that's been supplied, it doesn't appear that. I think a reasonable conclusion would be that they're not potentially a going concern through the end of the school year. Is that?
So because I can't verify the accuracy of the rest of the projections for the rest of the year, I mean, if we just assume that their numbers are all correct, they would have a $63,000 loss.
But we have no basis even on which to make that assumption.
We don't
There are a
have-
lot of.
Yeah, we don't have enough information in order to verify the accuracy of the financial reports.
And can you share with the board the sort of steps you went through to secure the financial information, or what sorts of agreements you had?
So we have deliverables that we require of all the charter schools, and charter schools give us quarterly financials. Included in that is a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement. We get an annual budget. It's usually delivered by May 1st. And then anytime there's a change in the state school fund or any major change, we ask for a revision on that budget. In addition, beginning in October, November, we realized that the budget that we had for Trillium was inaccurate, so we began asking for a more accurate budget and asking for some monthly reporting, not just quarterly. And at that time was also when they were undergoing some transition in their finance office. And so there was a changeover and a period of time where things were just in flux. And so at this point, we still have not received our Q2 reports or those monthly, other than the monthly projections that you just heard about.
And just to reiterate, I think the main reason that you considered that budget inaccurate was because it was based on revenue flowing for an enrollment of 350 students, when there were only 203 or so currently enrolled.
Well, the other piece that was questionable was the grants and donations line of $300,000 in the revised budget when historically it was 30,000.
Right.
What was the total budget roughly?
Total budget?
Ballpark.
Ask your next question and I'll get back to you.
So I'm curious, at the end of the day, the Trillium Board is ultimately responsible for sort of the governance and the financial responsibilities of the charter, and I'm wondering what interaction the district had with the board, or was it all with the staff?
We have attended, I think, 2 board meetings in this year, and also Trillium board meetings, and also sent email information and requests and copied both the Trillium Finance Office as well as the Trillium board president, and had a number of email exchanges about that. The most recent Trillium board meeting that I attended was actually when they were embarking on the transition of finance personnel, and the Trillium board was also asking for the same information that the district had been asking.
And we also had a few board members who came to our charter committee meeting, and we had a robust conversation with them, question and answer. And then we've heard from several members of the board who came to the hearing as well. But we had a real opportunity for dialogue in the committee meeting.
So the
Did we get any information from them, though, from the board? I mean, I'm assuming they have a executive committee and a treasurer and...
Nothing formally transmitted. We had testimony from the board president in the hearing.
So I just have revenue expenditures from the audited statement, so I know that they're confirmed numbers. So the revenues for 17-18 were $2.36 million, and the expenditures for the same year were $2.44 million. 2.44 million.
Can you clarify what the requirements are for charter schools in terms of their fiscal health and the kind of reporting requirements that are expected?
So the district determines that by contract. So in the contract, we ask for the quarterly statements. District finance office goes through those statements and has a spreadsheet they use to input the data from. And when there are red flags or concerns, then we will ask the charter schools to provide additional information and more frequent information. And we also require their annual municipal audit. And when required, we will ask for the treasurer's reports from board meetings.
Is it allowable for a charter school to run a deficit?
I need an accountant to answer that because I want to make sure.
So I would say they spent more expenditures than they had revenue last year, but their fund balance is still in the positive. So they're not at a deficit mode. Their fund balance went down by $76,000, ending at $814,000 on June 30th, 2018.
But if we assume that the numbers that you have are even close to accurate.
This one right here is an audited financial
Right,
statement,
but
so I feel like
for
that's
the-
audit.
For the current fund
For
balances.
the current year.
So,
I mean, you
so
can
if I
run,
wrote these numbers down right.
you can run it at a deficit until you run out of cash.
Right, so, so the projection is that by June 30th, 2019, they would be $263,000 in the hole.
They would have 263,000 more in expenditures than they have coming in revenue.
Right.
I would need to look at the statement to see if the fund balance is included in that statement, and I don't have that in front of me.
It would be like a case where we had more expenditures than revenue in a given year, but if we had an ending fund balance, it's okay. So the critical question is whether they have an ending fund balance that's sustainable in a year in which their expenditures are greater than their revenues.
I mean,
But if
if
they've over budgeted revenue by $600,000 this year, there's not going to be anything left at the end of
That's
the
the
year.
unreconciled part.
Right.
So the difficulty for this situation in particular is that there is not a person on staff there that can help reconcile this to recognize exactly what their financial standing is.
Well, they have not provided the
We haven't
requested
received any
information.
financial reports that shows that. And so the concern is, as enrollment has declined, that the revenue will not come and their expenditures are continuing. And so that by the end of the year, without having someone with strong financial projection skill set, that's the concern that I have right now.
So, I mean, from where I sit, you know, the essential question is this school going to be able to keep the doors open even for the rest of this academic year? I mean, apart from whether they can make a go of it next year, can they keep the doors open through June?
That's a very real and significant consideration, and part of the deliberation is if we have 200 children under our care who all of a sudden have no place to go to school in the middle of the spring.
So, I mean, I think this speaks to the timing of it. You know, it's our responsibility to try to mitigate harm for students. If they're not going to be able to, if Trillium is not going to be able to keep the doors open through June, it would be much more difficult for students and families to be left kind of high and dry sometime in, I don't know, whenever, May, when it's going to be very difficult to make alternative arrangements, both for this year and for the following year. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's our responsibility. This is why we're talking about this right now. And I mean, I have to say, at least from a financial standpoint, the most troubling piece of information I received was that Trillium cannot provide accurate information at this point. And that after a number of months of requests, we still have not received that critical information. That's disturbing. That speaks to, I mean, the criterion is
Financial
financial
stability.
management or financial stability. I mean, that speaks to a kind of critical system deficit that is putting children at risk. Am I wrong?
No.
I think you're right. There's a larger system deficit that starts at the district level that's persisted through the audit process that you've all just been through. I mean, it's true. There's a deficit. There's a clear and consistent deficit across our school.
We just had a clean financial audit.
Right.
We just had, Portland Public Schools just had a clean financial audit.
So I want to just ask another question that I think is sort of just a question people in the community would have. I had. So this Trillium had its charter renewed last when?
2017 is in this time of year,
2017, and
spring
it
of
was a
2017.
A 5-year charter?
Yes.
And so we're a year and a half into it. What's the precedent for here at PPS or somewhere else in the state for stepping in sort of mid tenure? You know, having been on the board before when we had lots of charters and some that ended up not being renewed. Normally, it was at the renewal time period. So maybe if you could speak to sort of what the process was that precipitated sort of this mid-charter tenure.
Sure.
Because usually the philosophy is charters are a place where sort of innovation is allowed to happen and sort of they sink or swim on their own, but that's the beauty of, like, they don't have a lot of the accountability or sort of all the other strings that come with being a school within a public school system. So they have a lot of autonomy, but that autonomy also allows them, you know, to fail if that's the case. And so I'm curious, you know, should we have let it play out? What brought the staff to a recommendation to put something in place, and why we're here midway through their charter period?
So one of the things you just said was they don't have a lot of accountability, and actually the opposite is true. They have more autonomy, and they have actually more accountability by law than the district schools. That autonomy is so that they can innovate and try things, and the accountability is so that schools don't try things into failure at the expense of students. And I think generally the law is set up to do a review at a renewal cycle, but very clearly our Oregon Charter School Law does have a process in place for the very specific criteria that are outlined for terminating a charter during its term. And one of the reasons that we do take so much annual achievement data and attendance data and all the other standards that we check is so that we can constantly be ensuring that the charter schools are healthy and that students are getting what they need. And it's so that school boards can intervene if there is a concern about a charter school. PBS's contract with charter schools does have this agreement that after 2 years of a failed standard, any standard failed for 2 years consecutively will result in an improvement plan. Mm-hmm. And we have not in the past had any other school come to that. So this is our first time through this process.
And I would also just add that each year on every charter school, we complete an annual performance framework and report. And with regard to what was brought attention is areas of not meeting both in academic and financial concerns from the 17-18 school year. So when those are brought forward, both internally and then shared with the charter school subcommittee, as they are for all schools going through renewal or any school that we have concerns about, that's the process that we as a district take every year in our review site visits, where we look at our organizational, each school's organizational capacity, fiscal stability, and academic performance. So each of those three are the three components that comprise our performance evaluation for every charter school. Concerns that came up in previous years, but certainly in last year's, are what charted the course for how we proceeded this year.
Okay, at the risk of beating a dead horse here. Okay, so you've been asking for these reports since October?
October began the request for a revised budget. As we progressed into November was when we began to ask for additional monthly reports, cash flow, et cetera.
Okay, and none of those requests have been fulfilled to date?
Not adequately.
Okay.
Correct.
Has there been any proposal from Trillium about, or any suggestion when they might be able to produce adequate accounting to respond to those requests?
I don't think I've received a time frame, although I absolutely know they're working on trying to get the information. It's, I just have not had a date.
So no, we have not received the information requested. And while I appreciate communication with their staff, they have not been able to produce what the district has asked for.
And
And there's-
meanwhile, the time frame for this process has been
Right.
clear.
But I mean, and they have not said, we can't give it to you this week, but give us X amount of time and we'll be able to deliver. They have not said that.
They have said that. The former financial person said that in October, in November. So I think what happens is we're getting consistently put off for a longer period of time.
Okay.
Without an end time.
We should- Any other questions from the board?
No, but I'm going to have something I want to say before.
Okay. Okay, so we'll now consider resolution number 5827, a resolution approving termination of the charter agreement with Trillium Charter School. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Director Anthony moves, Director Constam seconds the adoption of resolution number 5827. Ms. Powell, is there any public comment?
Yes, we have two. We have Danny Rosen and Joseph Bryan.
Thank you for. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Trillium students, families, my name is Danny Rosen, ROSEN. Trillium students, families, and PPS board members. My name is Danny Rosen. My pronouns are she, her, he, him, his. I'm the current chair of the Oregon chapter of GLSEN and co-chair of the GLSEN National Advisory Council. Today, I'm asking the board to commit to keep the Trillium Charter School open. As the letter from the Trillium PTSA has asked, provide reasonable time to continue to address the deficiencies that have been identified. I'm here because of the concern that several LGBTQ students and families could be impacted by the closure of Trillium. Trillium has provided many of these students a last resort learning environment, having experienced bullying or other hostile acts in previous schools. While I recognize that PPS has done much to address the incidents of bullying, intimidation, and harassment in recent years, there's been an uptick in incidents reported nationwide. Here in the Portland metro area, physical assaults have been increasing. The concern of parents, guardians, concerned community members, and organizations such as GLSEN are not unfounded. The resources available to students in all schools within PPS are stretched thin. One benefit that Trillium provides is a community of emotional protective factors. The long-term attendance at Trillium, the K through 12 provides an opportunity to create a cohort of peers that support each other. When schools change from elementary school to middle school, then high school, each change introduces new challenges to build a similar protective group. More critical is each school change introduces a factor of fear, expectations of negative incidents, name-calling, and exclusion that will make successful learning more difficult. Trillium, with adequate support, provides the model for addressing these concerns like no other school in the district. One of the areas that has been used to justify the closure is the lack of performance on standard tests on the elementary grade levels. While these concerns are being highlighted, I am confused that the high school is performing better than average and will be closed as part of this closure. Trillium has a different kind of elementary curriculum and may not be adequately reflected in the state standardized testing. I have submitted a letter that speaks to the less measurable skills that are developed at Trillium but are critical for today's and future business environments. Skills such as lifelong learning and collaborative working environments. Finally, the apparent issues that have been growing before the current executive director took charge. Finally, current director stepped in critical time as an interim director and had such limited authority to address these issues. Since being appointed to the position full-time, these have been multiple requests for very support without apparent success. PPS should first consider what impact they have had that has impeded the school's recovery, and then consider what support is needed to grow this valuable resource for these youth at Trillium currently and for future students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I apologize for our confusion about the process around this. Sonia was going to read a statement from the PTA at our school. We were going to read it together. I asked the chair if we could come together to present that. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the flexibility. And thank you, Danny, for that statement. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Sonia, and I am very grateful to have an opportunity to communicate here. I wanted to first acknowledge the fact that I know that you guys are faced with a very difficult decision, seeing the budget gap that you guys are facing for the coming year. I also wanted to validate you and the state of Oregon for being leaders at a national level in terms of providing or having the intention to create an environment that addresses national challenges in regards to violence and excessive suicide and just general struggles that communities that are vulnerable and historically underserved are facing. I do believe that our school, it's part of that solution. The parents of Trillium prepare a statement that says, "We're deeply concerned by some of the errors, omissions, and arguments set forth by the staff analysis and report to the board. It is obvious from recent statements that not sufficient information exists to be able to make a decision that's beyond a shadow of a doubt the right decision." I also wanted to point out that in answering the question of what actual help Trillium received from PPS, the question wasn't actually answered fully. MAPS was not implemented at the school, even though steps were taken to get to that point. That never actually occurred. Further, when talking about some of the help available, that was not help that was directly addressed to Trillium, knowing the circumstances that the school was in.
Can I just, also that equity funding and Measure 98 funding was not mentioned in that as well.
The finances, yeah. And having a financial background, you know that if there are errors on the entry of the money, you know that money coming in might not have been recorded as well as money being paid out. That would impact the debt records of the school. So there, as you guys have noted, that there's a potential that the school will be on a deficit because of their enrollment, but you're failing to acknowledge the fact that there might also be a lot more money there that hasn't been reported. Overall, it appears that the PPS board is being pressed with a false choice to either terminate the Trinity Charter now or to shut down the school effective the end of this year, or to decline to do so at this time, but revisit the issue in 2019 with the express threat that at that time Trillium would once again face the prospect of revocation and closure. Although the second option appears to offer Trillium a chance to address the issues identified by the charter school department, this option too appears designed to ensure that its demise. Rather, why it is widely recognized that it takes at least 2 to 4 years to turn a struggling school around, the second option still provides far less time than that. The PPS has known that Trillium has been struggling for at least 6 years under the prior administration, and no obvious efficient support was provided given the fact that it continued to go down in its performance, right? PPS actually has an option to make a different choice to allow Trillium to continue to operate for no less than the remainder of its current charter agreement until June of 2022, while providing the support that are needed for the school to move forward on its current path of improvement in student performance and returning to financial stability. Given the significant efforts that have already been undertaken to take Trillium back, get Trillium back on track, and the multiple ways that this school serves vital needs within PPS community, the third option is the only reasonable outcome. And I know I'm out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening.
Any other public comment? Ms. Powell? No. Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, you had a question for me?
No, I was just asking if there was anybody else.
Oh, I see.
There is not.
I just wanted to address your financial question.
Well, if you're gonna, can you come up?
Hello, I'm Ruth Flores. I am the president of the PTA, and I am hearing a lot of very strong concerns about the financial situation of the school, which is warranted since you are missing a lot of reports that you need. And I just wanted to offer that I'm a small business person. I've been in business for 28 years. I've done our books and our taxes and our accounting for all of that time. I can offer my services as a consultant to the school and be their assistant to make sure those reports get to you. If you can give us 2 weeks' time, we can give you accurate reports. And I will do everything I need to do to make sure they are exactly the correct information, and everything that you need to make your decision will be available to you. Thank you.
That's kind. Thank you.
Any further board discussion?
A statement I want to make. And I'm going to address your offer. So I was on the board in 2003 when Trillium first received its charter. It was a time when there were lots of charters in PPS, a number of them that started then. And I served on the Ed Options Committee at the time, and which was the committee that's now called the Charter Committee. And I think one of the things I learned from serving on that committee was that the responsibility of starting and operating a school is really complex and challenging. I think a lot of parents here who were part of the process of sort of the ongoing support of a school, it's hard. And I think, we know that, and we've got a lot of support in a big system and people who have a lot of experience. So I just want to acknowledge that I think there's been a lot of care given into sort of nurturing Trillium over the years, and that should be acknowledged. I also think at the time when we granted the charter, the concept was to start at elementary and middle and eventually grow to a high school, and it was at the time, and I think maybe it still is, the only charter that had strived to provide this sort of K-12 environment. So not only is it a hard thing to run, open and operate a charter school, but I think Trillium picked a particularly tough challenge, which to really provide over this broad range of grades a charter experience. So for me, it's it's really sad that we're here wherever we are today, knowing the time and effort and commitment that people put into building Trillium. When Director Rosen and I visited Trillium yesterday, we had some great conversations with the high school students. They repped well for Trillium. They talked about their senior capstone projects, and I'll say the testimony that we had at the hearing that was held was really compelling, and I think students spoke to the sense of belonging they had at the school and the support they really felt from the adults and the broader Trillium community. So I think shout out to all the parents who've been and community members who have been involved in Trillium. However, it is a charters board's responsibility to manage and lead and really guide the financial and education affairs of a charter. And it's not the school district's responsibility. And I think we're faced with a really unfortunate choice tonight. And I'm concerned that while I think it's a very reasonable conclusion to come to, that Trillium is in very dire financial situation and may not be able to make it through the year. We don't know that with certainty because we don't have all the documents requested. So what I would say is, while we are going to take a vote tonight and make a decision as a board that Trillium has, there's a process in the charter process that if you provide the financial information, that's one piece. It's not the academic piece, but it's one piece of the information. So that is always an option for Trillium to pursue. So I think it's a very generous offer, but we have to make the decision tonight based on the information we have. So I'm going to support the committee's recommendation, but it's with the sadness that that's where we are tonight.
I'd like to add one thing too, and this is really on the academic side of things, which I want to recognize Executive Director Mays, because she stepped into this role, I think, based on what you've told us, not really knowing entirely the status of the school, either in terms of management and finances, but even with the educational program and curriculum and professional support and all that. And as well, head of school, Jamie, I'm forgetting your last name. But I think it's clear, and it was clear for me in my visit, because I visited Trillium in the past under different leadership, that there is a renewed sense of academic rigor, and there has been a lot of attention paid to that. But unfortunately, you stepped into this situation in the final year of a really serious academic deficiencies. So aside from the grave financial issues that we were talking about tonight, I did want to address that and to publicly recognize that there did seem to be seeds of a positive trajectory. And just to recognize your care and leadership and the supportive community that you have nurtured and advocated for at Trillium, because it's very special.
Any other comment?
It's the finances. Every one of us recognizes the community. That is so important. But just not knowing, and really the most realistic assumptions we can make are just, can you even get through the year? Or maybe you could, but only if you made substantial staff cuts now, which, to me, that's the best picture I can make of the reality, and that's not good.
I also want to respond to the gentleman. Yeah, thank you. I'm good at that. I'm really concerned about the students and their feeling of safety, and understand that they have a community there. And to reiterate, I think that that's why we're having this discussion and this vote now, to allow for some choice. So hopefully we can help find placements, find new communities for the students. And I really want, and I really want to work with our schools in general about, how we allow for the vast diversity of our students and for everybody to live in one community, and how we create that community and acceptance. It's just a good time to reiterate that we are a diverse world and a diverse community, and acknowledge that we have to do that for all of our schools. And I know that we've been working with our schools and talking about that. I think we have new student support offices. And I think that's a commitment by all of us to ensure that safety and well-being emotionally as well for all of our students. So,
How come if
Absolutely.
these concerns have been in place, no plan has been written out to actually help the transition of these students to go into the communities? There's no written plan in
So-
place that would be presented.
So I do want to say that our charter office and our Multiple Pathways program does have a plan in place for families around assistance with the enrollment process and the placement process, but also broader support. And it doesn't quite feel like the right moment to go into the details of that, other than to say that I know that families will be hearing from our team.
Multiple Pathways told us that Trillium was our only choice.
For the high schoolers, it is the only choice.
So your department is just taking away the one choice we have.
Okay, I'm going to have to, I mean, we've gotten quite a lot of public testimony, and so
I feel like
We have a resolution on the table.
Our testimony isn't being addressed by the board. We're hearing about the finances. What we're not hearing about is how our children are going to be accommodated. What you've heard over and over again in the testimony is that children came to Trillium because they did not feel safe at other schools. What you heard over and over again from families and kids is that they were being bullied. All I hear is
And-
money, no safety.
this is certainly not about greed, and it's we have a responsibility to address the financial stability of the school, precisely because if Trillium has to close, what we're trying to do is to do this in an orderly fashion so that we can actually work with families and students to find the most appropriate educational placements for them. And if we wait until
Has taken in kids with IEPs and 504s and completely given them exactly what they need when the other schools in your system are completely failing the students who need those accommodations.
I think all of us up here recognize the work that Trillium has done over the years. It has an extraordinary proportion of students with identified special needs for a charter school. And I think we want to congratulate you all. It's been a journey over many years, but the reality is a charter school must be financially sustainable. And not to mention, it has to be serving the educational needs of students as well. And we have
Say a word about the testing or what is happening in the high school that is thriving.
we have a responsibility as the Board of Education for Portland Public Schools. We have very little flexibility in this. This is all being driven by state statute. And the requirements of charter schools. And one of the requirements,
Cis people can sit up here and tell a bunch of people who have queer people, trans people, and people of colors in their community, in their school, that they have to go somewhere where they don't feel safe. Because you can't be bothered to keep the school open for a little bit longer, and you can sit up there and wring your hands and say you understand as much as you want, but you don't have any idea what these families are going to go to if they have to leave Trillium. You have no idea how many trans kids could die if they have to leave Trillium. Do you understand that? It is life or death. No, it is life or death, and none of you seem to give a damn about that.
Your child doesn't fit in their number bracket.
I have a possible solution to the financial problem if I can address.
Actually, we've all been talking about this for the last weekend, the entire PTA, and working on financial solutions. I know you've all spoken about, for a moment, the equity available from the value of the school building. The school building apparently has $2.7 million in its value. Therefore, because it is property of the 501c3 that is Trillium, we can go to a bank and we have a lender lined up to lend us against that equity value, just like anybody gets a second mortgage on their house. And we can use that as interim funding to get us to the end of the year if we should need it. We don't know if we need it, but I understand you're worried. If we need it, we have it. We have 55 students that are kindergartners on our wait list, ready to start in September. Okay, 2019, we've worked very hard. They've come through. We have their applications. They're on our wait list. They represent $467,000 that will be added to Trillium's available funds to work next year, and that's only so far. Okay, because that's what our entire PTA has been working on, increasing enrollment by getting visibility so the community knows we're here. For the longest time, everybody I spoke to about Trillium, the only thing they said is, oh, it would be so nice to send my children there, but they have a lottery system, we're not going to get in. So the community, the larger community that wants to send their students to Trillium are out there with this misconception. So we have been advertising and putting all of our money into advertising, and we have gotten 55 new kindergarten students on our wait list, representing $467,000 to add to our budget next year. All we need is interim funds. We can get that from a second mortgage on the building. Since we own the building, $2.7 million in value in the building, we can access that. Okay, we're not going to run out of money before the end of the year. We're fine. And the momentum of this school is phenomenal. We have 3 times the people on the PTA. We got 15 dedicated members that are running around like crazy, making everything possible so we have the funds, so the school is beautiful, so the people come through it, and the people are like, yeah, I want to send my kids here. We've got them. They're waiting, a stack of them. They're waiting for us to do this. You people are mourning our school with us, knowing how valuable it is, not wanting to let it go and let it disappear. You don't have to, okay? We have that. That is our financial solution. No matter where our books are right now, whatever we need to get to the end of the year so we have the new school year starting with all the new students that are coming at us right now, we'll be fine, okay? You don't have to close us for the worry of the financial situation. You don't have to close us for the worry of the school, of the grades either. I mean, we've got 6 months that we've been able to work on the math grades, okay? The new program that we started, which was the action plan, which was January 2018, you have 6 months data on it. We were supposed to have a whole year's data, but you're not looking at this year's data. You're looking at the end of 2018. You haven't gotten even this fall's data. 6 months data on math data. We have hired a new math specialist for the school. Give him a chance to work. We got it. Our math grades did improve. They just didn't improve up to the point where we said they would improve. They improved 20% instead of 40%. They're improving. We are doing it. We are doing it across the board. This place is working. You do not have to shut us down. Thank you.
Okay. The board will now vote on resolution number 5827. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed, please indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? Resolution number 5827 is approved by a vote of 7-0.
Is there an appellate procedure?
There is,
Yes, there is.
prescribed by the state.
Yes.
And the charter office can help parents with information.
The next item on the agenda is multiple pathways to graduation location analysis. At last week's work session, the board discussed the multiple pathways to graduation location analysis. The board is now ready to vote on the resolution. The board will now consider resolution number 5828. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I don't
Director
have
Anthony
that.
moves and Director Esparza Brown seconds the motion to adopt Resolution 5828. Ms. Powell, is there any public comment? Ms. Powell? Sorry. Is there any public comment?
On multiple pathways?
Yes, one moment. We have one, we have John Grushow.
Do we have where's the resolution?
It was,
I mean, I read it, but does anybody have it? Copy?
it's in the,
Thank you.
My name is John Grushow, Grueschow. And I'm here to speak in support of keeping the Alliance High School on the Benson campus. There are way too few options already for students struggling to complete their education and graduate from high school. Traditional high school doesn't work for everyone. I would actually say it doesn't work for many students. And we all need to be more creative in providing a broader range of academic choices, not shrinking them. Too often, a student who fails in a traditional school faces very limited post-high school options, such as an unfulfilling minimum wage job or military enlistment. For military recruiters, these kids are a prime target, and they're targeted for deployment to a war zone, not a viable career. We should be able to do better than relying on McDonald's or the armed forces to step in when students see no other future. I urge you to find room for Alliance High School at Benson and expand such options instead of cutting them. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Is there any board discussion on this resolution?
a question. On 1A of the resolved, I don't know if you have a copy, but it refers to the, collocate the, it has a list, and then it has the Portland Virtual Scholars. It's my understanding that's just a classroom of the Virtual Scholars, it's not the actual Virtual Scholars program. Is that right? Is that correct? Because the Virtual Scholars Program is actually located at Holiday Annex, the office.
Correct. So the district-wide program office and teachers operate out of the Holiday Annex. What we have currently at Benson High School is a classroom that Virtual Scholars operates in all day long. And I believe that's what is referenced in the resolution.
So maybe just a perfecting amendment to add the word classroom, maybe with an apostrophe S in brackets after that, so that it allows for if it's more than one classroom? Is that?
It's essentially a satellite classroom. Ideally, we would have something like that at every comprehensive.
It's just not the program. Makes sense.
Is that an actual motion for an amendment?
Yes, so I'm just adding 1A, second line, after Portland Virtual Scholars, just the word classroom with a bracket around the S.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Director Brim Edwards moves, Director Constam seconds a motion to amend the language as noted. Any discussion?
I have another language amendment. I could piggyback, or we could do it again. It's equally minor and persnickety.
We can put them together and someone wants to pull one out.
Okay, we'll do a combined persnickety
Why
amendment.
don't we just vote on this one, then vote?
Okay, go ahead, vote.
Okay.
We will.
Any discussion on the, okay, vote on the amendment to, for Director Brim Edwards' language change. All in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the amendment passes. Dr.
I would
Constant?
like it to propose another amendment looking at same Article 1 of the resolution under B, and it says, build a dedicated building on Benson campus property for MPG programs, Alliance High School at Benson. I would like to strike at Benson, so it just says Alliance High School. And then it does, the point is, it does clarify below on item I that there still is staff work to be done to evaluate Alliance at meet campus programming needs to determine feasibility of co-locating in new building at Benson. I would say instead of co-locating, uniting the, and this doesn't have to be part of the amendment, but uniting the Alliance community in one building on the Benson campus. We're still awaiting that staff report, so just to make it really clear that approval of this resolution does not preclude that future conversation about a united alliance. So the amendment is simply to strike at Benson from 1B, where it says Alliance High School at Benson.
Okay, Director Constam moves this amendment. Do we have a second? Second. Director Constam moves, Director Moore seconds the amendment to strike at Benson in 1B. Any discussion?
I do have a question for Ms. Wolf. I know the board has frequently tied itself in knots over what things are named. Do you have any issue with that?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
You mean the whole general phenomenon, or just this?
Sure. That was an easy one. Thank you.
Okay.
We need to vote.
About the amendment?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, say no. Abstentions? Okay, the second amendment passes 7-0. Any further board discussion?
So this is just a question, and I think it's just the nature of the, we've been through so many versions of this, but in 2AI, probably, or maybe this is a Dan, I don't know, but there's a reference to the teen parent childcare and food and clothes closets. Are we, is this replicating that in the separate building, or is it, there's one of those for the Benson campus?
TBD.
Ask that.
Well, I'm just wondering what this says.
It's one for the campus.
Okay, one for the,
One shared teen parent center.
Yes.
one shared teen parent center, one food closet, one clothes closet. Okay, great. That's all I needed. I wanted to make sure that we're
Okay.
using some efficiencies, campus efficiencies.
Director Bailey?
Well, I'd just go back to our historical issues about sharing facilities or not at Benson with programs, and just, I get that it makes sense to only have one center, but, you know, want to make sure that everybody using that center is actually welcome in the Benson building.
Well, maybe they're Benson campus facilities for those shared facilities, which is really important if they're established that way at the start versus they're one building's properties and then somebody else comes in. So starting with a shared proposition.
So the way it's worded now is that the dedicated standalone MPG building would host the teen parent centers
Okay,
for
okay,
others to
okay.
access. Okay.
So they'll need to welcome the Benson High
So
School
that,
students.
so they own it, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of Resolution 5828, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Okay, Resolution 5828 is approved by a vote of 7-0. Okay, next item is a first reading on the compulsory enrollment age and grade level at entrance, policy 4.10.020. I'd like to ask Director Brim Edwards, as Chair of the Board's Policy and Governance Committee, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Director Moore. So this came out of the Policy and Governance Committee after we had 2 meetings on it and considered this. It was brought to us by staff, and it came out of the committee with a unanimous recommendation. And I'd like to ask the Judy Brennan from the Enrollment Transfer Office to provide a brief overview. We tried to do some consolidation and really set things up so that as we enter our enrollment season, we're providing clear guidance to schools, parents, and the community. So go ahead.
As you probably know, our schools welcome more than 5,000 new students each year. I'm representing a group of departments who, through a recent review, recognized that our district policy and practice has unfortunately been unclear in a few areas that relate to those newcomer students. And that's resulted in some confusion, some delays in enrollment, and unfortunately, in some cases, actually in placing students with the same age and educational experience in different grade levels at different schools. This has been particularly true for 2 groups of students. Those who are early in their career in PPS, they're seeking entrance into kindergarten or first grade, but their birth date occurs after the September 1st cutoff. We may find that in School A, it would result in a child being enrolled in kindergarten, whereas in School B, they would enroll that child with the same birth date in first grade. This is also especially true for children who are entering at higher grades and whose prior school experience has been in other countries or who come without complete academic transcripts. Superintendent Guerrero mentioned earlier to you the importance and the value of our immigrant students, as was felt in the International Youth Leadership Conference last week. These are the very types of students who also may be coming after extended periods of time away from school, and we want to do everything that we can to make sure that their arrival experience is welcoming, is swift, and allows them an appropriate placement. Unfortunately, because of a lack of clarity, both in our procedures and training, but also at the policy level, we would find that you could have a school that might enroll one student, a 17-year-old in 11th grade, and another school who would enroll that student based on what they believe to be their educational background, so in 9th grade. So that's what we're here to help clean up tonight. As I said, worked with a team of multiple departments, and we're providing you with some draft policy changes that we believe will direct more consistent and equitable enrollment practices through a single streamlined policy. Highlights, as you know, most families choose to enroll their 5-year-olds in kindergarten, but this revised policy will clarify that students who come to PPS having completed kindergarten elsewhere are allowed to enroll in first grade even if their birth date, they'll turn 6, after September 1st. Students who come to us as 6-year-olds but who have not completed kindergarten may enroll in kindergarten instead of going straight to first grade. Students who come to us mid-year may continue in the grade level of their prior school, even if their birth date was after that September 1st cutoff. And then, perhaps most importantly, for those students who are arriving in PPS with that interrupted prior experience or incomplete transcripts, they will be placed in the grade levels that correspond with their age. Teachers and councils will work together with parents and students to select courses in consideration of the student's academic skill level. In addition to these content changes, and based on the much appreciated suggestions of the Policy and Governance Committee, we're proposing a more streamlined policy structure so that parents and other stakeholders can find essential guidance on school entry in a single policy. We've taken information about compulsory enrollment, pulled it out of one policy, have set it together here, and we've taken other information about the right to request early entry to kindergarten in from another policy. As a result of that, we are also recommending the rescission of policy 4.10.032. That's in front of you tonight. Please know that there is also important related policy work that will be coming to you shortly, led by the Office of Teaching and Learning. That includes revision of promotion and retention policies and procedures, revision of policy and procedures for exemption to compulsory education, and revision of procedures for early entry to kindergarten that exists in an administrative directive right now. Even though that is related work, it's important work, and it's coming soon, we believe that and are asking for your consideration of these proposed changes to this essential school entry policy now, because now is when so many of those new students are coming to us through those Connected Kindergarten events, and it will also help us set up training support and other essential tools for all of our school enrollment teams so that they are fully prepared to meet the majority of our new students as they come to us right at the start of the school year. So that's the package that we have in front of you. I appreciate your attention, and we're here if you have any questions.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to thank you. I think especially what you mentioned about students coming from other countries and where we might look at their level of education and place that way, where parents, that wouldn't be alarming to many parents because other countries often would play, that's their educational system. But, we need to be age appropriate and provide the supports that students need to fill in those gaps. So I think this is a great start, changing the change in policy. So thanks for addressing this.
And I just wanted to call out that at the International Youth Leadership Forum last week, we had a panel of students who had graduated from PPS who had all come in as immigrants in middle or high school. And they were talking about what their experiences were and what they were doing now and how they'd been served well and how we could have done better. And nearly every single one of them talked about the confusion and the disorientation upon arrival of not knowing where they were going to be placed or being placed in a certain grade and then having it rescinded and having confusion with their family and having lack of alignment with other peers or even family members of the same age. And we didn't ask about that experience, but it came forth from nearly every single one of them as something that had been fairly traumatic.
Thank you for bringing that forward. We hope that this is a small piece that will help drive, that broader system change to create that more welcoming environment.
We have a lot of other ideas on that subject as well. How to be more welcoming.
Thank you.
So again, that came out of committee with a unanimous recommendation to have it first read or to be introduced and to go into the public comment period.
Okay, great.
Okay. The proposed amended policy will be posted on the board website, and the public comment period is 21 days, with the last date of comment being March 19th, 2019. The board will hold a second reading of the amended policy at the March 19th meeting. Okay, next item is the business agenda. The board will now... Oh, okay. We have another first reading. Director Brim-Edwards.
Don't want to forget this one. Thank you, Chair Moore. So in addition, the Policy and Governance Committee had an opportunity to have several meetings over the last couple months on Policy 6.50.010. It's been renamed Field Trips, Foreign Travel, and Other Off-Campus Activities. As board members may recall, we had a first reading on some basic changes, and those changes really were driven initially by the Whitehurst report from last spring. And what we focused on in that initial set of changes was really making clear, providing direction to school communities about staff conduct, professional conduct, boundaries on field trips and travel. Also, we made really clear the distinction between school-sponsored trips and non-school sponsored trips. Then in January, we had some additional language that was offered, that was under consideration by the board. And those changes did a number of things relating to, I think, addressing some issues that board members saw around equity. So a very strongly held view by committee members, superintendent, that no student should not be able to go on a field trip or travel because of financial issues, or potentially discriminatory treatment at places where students were traveling to. So there was another set of language added, and then we entered into another public comment period. And then on, let's see, our last Policy and Governance Committee meeting, we had a discussion about some of the feedback that we received from the broader community around the changes that have been proposed. So this is how the legislative process is supposed to work. There was a base set of policy changes. We opened it up for public comment. We got a lot of public comment and a whole variety of topics. And based on that, tonight we're having a replacement first reading for that policy. And I want to just highlight a couple of the changes that are both in the policy, in this modified policy that we're now having a first reading for tonight, and then also talk about some things that aren't actually in the policy but are, I think, complementary to the work ahead. So the first item is there had been references to the rescissions of the administrative directives in the staff report. And it should be clear that administrative directives are the domain of the superintendent and staff. The board doesn't create or rescind them. So essentially, when the policies are changed, the superintendent and staff review the policy and makes a determination of whether ADs need to be changed. So we're just removing that from the staff report. It created some concerns about what it was changing to, and that's really not the board's purview. We're a policymaking body. Then in addition, as part of the dialogue with the community, there was a suggestion that we look at things not in a deficit mode, but in an asset mode, and that the value that the 8th grade capstone or experiential learning travel could have for more students than just the ones currently that are taking advantage of it. So when we get to the eventual consideration of the resolution, which would adopt the policy, I'm assuming we get there, that resolution would also add the following language: create an 8th grade experiential learning advisory group to catalog current capstone programs and share information, explore ways to expand experiential learning opportunities across PPS for all students in the middle grades, and to assist with the identification of barriers and logistical considerations that will inform PPS staff as they develop a long-term plan, and consider this component as part of ongoing work related to middle school redesign. And then to the policy language itself, we have, we're striking the language that limits the travel to 5 days, and in its place, again, I think this is going from maybe a deficit base to an asset base, looking at the concern there had been the students who weren't traveling and the sort of the continuation of their learning experience. So in addition to deleting the travel, the day limits, we're replacing it with district staff responsible for overseeing extended travel must notify building administrators in advance of the trip so that plans for continuity of curriculum and instruction can be assured for students remaining on campus. Those plans must be communicated to the school community and observed so that no disruption in curriculum or programming will occur for students remaining on campus. And then, so that's the sort of essence of the changes, and I want to thank the superintendent for his suggestions and engagement on sort of the policy revisions process and these other complementary pieces, and also to the broader school community who weighed in on the proposed policy. This also gave us an opportunity to do a practice on our communicating things out to the broader community. So we have now twice sent out the proposed changes to principals to communicate to their school communities. So, and that has generated some feedback. And this will be part of the sort of the ongoing practice that hopefully we'll engage in, so that when we're making substantive changes to policies that impact the school communities, that they are aware of the changes as they're happening and can weigh in. Also want to thank the Office of the General Counsel and Risk Management for their assistance in this, because really at this base at the beginning was an attempt by the board to capture the sort of the spirit of the recommendation from the Whitehurst report about student safety while they're traveling. And I want to just address one issue that last issue that we're not putting in the policy or changing that has been recommended, and I want to note why we're not changing it. There's been some concern or questions about the board's, the provision in the policy about the board review and approval of all out-of-state travel and foreign travel. And I just want to note that's currently a requirement. The board approve it. So for the last several board meetings, if people look into the business agenda, you'll see sort of a chart and a list of trips that are out of state or foreign trips that the board is approving. So this is just a routine part of our sort of responsibilities as a board members. Those are all pre-vetted through risk management and district staff before they come to the board. So we are retaining that, as it's an important component of the work. But I just want to note that it's not a new provision that we're adding the board review and approval is part of existing policy. So that came out of the committee with a unanimous vote to move it for a first reading or an introduction. So move into the 21-day public comment period.
Okay.
I just want to thank the participation in this process from particularly the Japanese immersion program, Ayano Kai, and also who testified at our our committee meeting last week, and in a very generous spirit offered to really help guide this process around identifying experiential learning experiences for all of our experiential experiences, excuse me, for all of our 8th graders, which fits into a suite of activities that we've identified for a long time, where in middle school you have something like that each year. 6th grade outdoor school, 7th grade makerspace experience, and then 8th grade to be determined, but some meaningful experience. And so that was a really generous proposal. And then tonight, with the testimony from the 3 gentlemen representing the Mandarin immersion program, the same thing. So we really appreciate it, and we will take you up on it. And we're sorry about the bumpy road, and we all ended up in a better place. And thanks for your engagement.
Just a couple appreciations. One, this is what policy development is supposed to look like. When you're looking at them periodically and you're looking to update and refresh, you oftentimes enter them with some questions that might be a concern, and it raises questions with the broader community as well. And hopefully we provide the opportunity to listen to some of that feedback. So I also want to share an appreciation for those folks who extended the offer, who did come to my office, and what I thought was a very constructive conversation. I know many folks up here similarly spoke with members of various communities, but I think what resulted was even stronger language. So even just getting beyond thinking about an 8th grade capstone experience for all of our 8th graders, to actually think beyond that pre-K-12 what experiential learning actually means in PPS and what kind of opportunities can we guarantee to give access to all of our students. So not something that would happen overnight, but a good question for us to tackle as part of the educational program for all of our students. So just want to thank folks who lent their input in this process. I know we had a lot of interesting topics on tonight's agenda, but could we just have a show of hands if you were here to listen in on this topic tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the proposed amended policy will be posted on the board website, and the public comment period is 21 days, with the last date of comment being March 19th, 2019. The board will hold a second reading of the amended policy at the March 19th meeting. Okay. Next item is the business agenda. The board will now vote on the remaining items in the business agenda, having already voted on resolutions 5826 through 5828. Ms. Powell, are there any changes to the business agenda?
No, there are not.
What was it again?
It's resolution 5833, just adding to the last sentence, and travel costs will be charged to the board office budget.
Okay,
I'm moving that
Can we-
amendment.
I
okay,
don't believe that that is correct.
It was not correct.
It's not, that travel is not coming out of the board budget office. It's funded by Measure 98.
Right, but for appropriate accountability and transparency, board travel should come out of the board office budget. I had a conversation with the superintendent and the board chair. We had a lengthy discussion last spring around the board office budget, and there's nothing it just particular about this trip, but it is better practice so that staff is not in a position where they're approving board travel.
This was not a question of staff approving board travel. This was staff
Well, and
initiating.
paying for it, so our board office budget should pay for board travel. So that way, staff is not in the position of having to say yes or no to board members, or to be in the position of offering travel to board members.
I also checked with best practices
don't-
of council, and that's what they recommend as well. The Council of the Great City Schools, that it
Is
be
that correct?
through the board office budget, any travel.
If that's correct, I defer to that.
Okay, so I do believe we need to pull this out of the business agenda. Do we have a motion to consider this amendment?
First, you want a motion to approve the resolution, get a second, and
So
then there'll be a
moved.
motion to amend.
Since it's standalone.
Okay, I need a motion to.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Director Bailey moves and Director Constam seconds the adoption of the business agenda?
No, 5833.
5833,
Yes.
Resolution 5833. Okay, is there any public comment? No, okay.
Did you get the language?
Okay, Ms. Powell, did you get the language change?
I couldn't hear it.
Okay,
Okay, so yes, now we need an amendment.
okay, so I'm offering an amendment. So at the end of the resolved, after March 19th, just put, and travel costs will be charged to the board office budget.
Okay, so
Second.
Director Brim Edwards moves the amendment, Director Bailey seconds. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we'll now vote on the amendment to Resolution 5833. Is that the right number? Okay. All in favor say yes.
Yes?
Yes. Opposed, say no. Abstentions? Okay, the amendment passes by a vote of 7-0. Okay, now we will return to the,
Now we have to vote on the
agenda, business.
The rest, 5833 as amended.
Okay. Sorry, it's late already. Okay, all in, it's already been moved, right? Okay. All in favor of Resolution 5833 as amended, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Abstentions? Okay, the amended Resolution 5833 passes by a vote of 7-0. Okay, now, we're going to do the regular business agenda. Do we have a motion and a second for the business agenda, to approve the business agenda?
Second.
Okay, Director Rosen moves, Director Anthony seconds the approval of the business agenda. Is there any public comment?
No.
Any board discussion?
Yes. I just want to make sure we all noted the wording in Resolution 5829 on the parking lot easement that basically said we have to pass this to get grant finished. And our partners at the city are not being partners with us on this.
I think that's worth noting, and I think there's also additional issues around that we are adding value for them in terms of fire egress there, for which we are not being compensated, that we were,
And
for them to be able to access their own facility through our improvements, for
That
which
we
we have to pay solely.
maintain. And we're having to do this because of city regulations.
Right. And just don't even ask about the expensive streetlights. To be
Okay,
continued.
I
Well,
think,
this is a happy conversation.
I think this is a discussion to be continued at a later date. Okay, any other discussion on the business agenda? Okay, the board will now vote. All in favor of the business agenda, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
All
Yes.
opposed, say no. Any abstentions? The business agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0. Okay, do we have any board, committee, or conference reports?
Just that the International Youth Leadership Forum, which we've mentioned a couple of times, was such an incredibly powerful and joyful day. And these are students that so often don't feel recognized, let alone celebrated. And there were all sorts of supports. There was a career expo. There was a workshop on pathways for bilingual teachers. Incredible. And the day ended, I have to say, with a talent show and a fashion show. So we had students in the fashion show with whatever they wanted to wear from Central African Republic, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Congo, Ghana, Eritrea, Guatemala. I mean, it was so beautiful, and I just want to thank all the staff that was involved in putting it together, and those students were on cloud nine.
Okay. Sorry, I missed it. Any other?
Just work on our educational vision process continues apace. Last week we had an open house at Wilson High School, and on Sunday the Life Change Church hosted a number of congregations from the African American church community. This week we're looking at Grant at Marshall tomorrow night. Let's see, Friday night at Roosevelt's and Saturday at Jefferson, open houses. So the work continues. We're getting great input from folks, and stay tuned for more.
So I've just, both the audit committee and the policy and governance committee met. The audit committee took some time to here an audit that was, I describe it as a leftover audit. Hey there. It was a leftover audit. It was by the Plan B consultancy around athletics and co-curricular activities. And so we had a discussion about the audit findings, potential recommendation, and some implementation items. They're going to come back to the next meeting just to have the sort of next phase of the discussion about that particular audit. And we'll be sharing it with the rest of the board, it's not an audit, it's a review, as well as the staff action plan. In addition, we continue to work on our the Secretary of State's audit, our audit action plan that will be responsible for overseeing. And then in the Policy and Governance Committee, we've took action tonight on 2 items that came out of it, but we also had a discussion about the work plan for the next 6 months, and incorporated some priorities that are issues that staff has brought to us, some issues that were in the Secretary of State's audit that we committed to, the student rep policy, and then probably the biggest piece of our work that we're going to be weighing into is on our 6-month calendar is a wholesale review of the start of a wholesale review of all of our policies with the Oregon School Boards Association. So we have a work plan. If non-committee members want to see it, we'll circulate it so you can see sort of what's in the queue.
Okay.
Could you send that around?
Yeah, I will right now.
Any other business? Okay, the next regular meeting of the board will be held on March 5th, 2019, and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you for giving me that meeting.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm glad it worked out. Yeah, it worked out good. And I just need about 30, 40 minutes. I'm bringing one of the education people with me.